Perspective, presented by the New Orleans Secular Humanist Association, following our few principles of humanism.
We're committed to the use of science and reason for understanding the universe and for solving human problems. We're skeptical of untested claims of knowledge, but we're open to new ideas.
We are concerned with securing justice and fairness in society and in ending intolerance and discrimination. We are committed to the total separation of religion and government.
We affirm humanism as a realistic alternative to the theologies of despair and the ideologies of violence. We reject the concept of an afterlife and believe in living a full and rewarding life here and now.
We value and respect each individual's right to judge and lead their lives according to their own position, as long as it's respectful of other people, living in a free society.
We hope you enjoy today's program and others in the weeks to follow.
Welcome to the New Orleans Humanist Perspective. I'm David Schultz, Vice President of New Orleans Secular Humanist Association. I'm filling in for our normal host, Harry Greenberger, President of the New Orleans Secular Humanist Association. Today we have a program devoted to science education in Louisiana. Our guest is an advocate for good science education in Louisiana and nationwide. But today, our guest is Dr. Barbara Forrest from Southeastern Louisiana University. She is a professor of philosophy there. Barbara has been active in her opposition, or in leading the opposition to the Louisiana Science Education Act, and was active this year in trying to repeal the Louisiana Science Education Act. And you haven't spoken about Louisiana Science Education Act on this program before. I know you've given many public talks, right. But if you could bring us up to date on it, starting from where this all began, that'd be great.
Okay. Well, the Louisiana Science Education Act is a stealth creationism law that was passed in 2008. So it's been on the books in Louisiana for 4 years now. But the backstory goes back farther than that. Some of your viewers will know about the Discovery Institute, which is a think tank in Seattle that began promoting intelligent design creationism in 1996, 16 years ago now. And eventually their efforts to promote intelligent design led to a court case, which they didn't initiate it themselves and they didn't want it. But a school board in Dover, Pennsylvania decided to integrate intelligent design into the science instruction and provide some reference books about it in Dover High School in Pennsylvania. So that was the first legal case about intelligent design, and the Discovery Institute ended up unwillingly very much involved in that case. And the school board lost. And both the Discovery Institute and intelligent design were exposed as just a creationist operation. So since they were so badly discredited, they had to find another way to promote intelligent design. So beginning in 2006, the following year, they decided that they would do it under the guise of academic freedom. And in 2007, the Discovery Institute developed what they call their Model Academic Freedom Statute on Evolution. This is actually a piece of model legislation designed to undermine the teaching of evolution in public schools. And they got very serious and aggressive in promoting that legislation in various states. They had been promoting it since 2004 without any success, beginning in Alabama. But they became very aggressive with that promotion in 2008. And they had friendly legislators in about half a dozen states, mostly in the South, introduce model bills. But the only state where it passed in 2008 was Louisiana, because all of the pieces that they needed in place for the legislation to pass were in place. They had a mostly new legislature, which was much more conservative, and they had a brand new governor, who was in the pocket of the Louisiana Family Forum. The Discovery Institute partnered with the Louisiana Family Forum, which is an arm of Focus on the Family in Louisiana, and together they got this bill written, introduced, and passed and signed by Bobby Jindal, and that's how we ended up with it on the books.
So what is it in the Louisiana Science Education Act that is is a problem for science education?
The problem is that this bill permits, it requires the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education to allow and assist local school districts and teachers to create an environment in which they can question the teaching of evolution. Now, the way they put this in the law is that it's really about critical thinking, okay? The undermining of the teaching of evolution is done under the guise of critical thinking. And in addition to evolution, in the bill, they can target global warming, human cloning, and the origins of life. And this is very clearly a creationist bill. And what it does is to permit teachers to, in addition to the state-mandated textbooks and other materials that they are required to use in Louisiana public schools, teachers can introduce supplementary creationist materials into their science teaching. So what they've done, it doesn't require anybody to do anything. It permits teachers, individual teachers, to introduce creationist materials into their science instruction under the guise of teaching critical thinking. And so, and there is a policy at the local level to enable them to do it under this law.
So, is the Discovery Institute providing literature for teachers to use? Or?
They have a textbook which they would like for teachers to use. The associate director of the Discovery Institute's Center for Science and Culture, which is their creationist wing, their associate director, John West, told the Opelousas newspaper back in 2008 that they hoped school systems would adopt a textbook called Explore Evolution, which is the new stealth intelligent design textbook. So far, we don't know that they're providing materials directly, but what's interesting is that the Louisiana Family Forum, in partnership with the Discovery Institute, is promoting materials for use. They're promoting an intelligent design DVD, and they're promoting, I forget exactly the name of it, but it was put out by a company that does business with the Discovery Institute. It's a set of DVDs that are designed to question evolution. But they're also promoting textbook supplements at a website called textaddons.com. The Louisiana Family Forum partners with a young earth creationist by the name of Charles Voss, and they are promoting the use of young earth creationist material as supplements in Louisiana science classrooms. And those are on the internet. They are being promoted avidly at textaddons.com.
So Charles Voss is a Louisianian as well, isn't he?
He is. He's a retired professor, LSU professor emeritus of electrical and computer engineering. And he's been partnering with the Louisiana Family Forum for years. I think that the Louisiana Family Forum, I think you could safely say that they're all young earth creationists. Most of the intelligent design people are old earth creationists, but they put aside their arguments over the age of the earth in order to promote intelligent design. Any form of creationism will do. And so the Discovery Institute is heavily invested. They have actively opposed our efforts to get this law repealed. They are very directly involved in Louisiana, the Discovery Institute is. They actually sent somebody down here to speak in favor of the law when it was being run through the legislative process in 2008, and they're still monitoring everything we do.
So Louisiana legislators had to introduce this bill.
Right.
And who were the legislators behind this? Where are they from?
The Louisiana Family Forum was able to get Senator Ben Nevers, who at the time was the chair of the Senate Education Committee, to introduce the bill. He had as co-sponsors Senator Francis Thompson, Senator Neil Reiser, and Senator A.G. Crow, I believe.
Okay.
But anyway, there were 4 senators, chiefly Senator Nevers. On the House side, the Louisiana Family Forum had Representative Frank Hoffman. Now that's interesting because in 2006, the Ouachita Parish School Board adopted its own academic freedom policy, which was the camel's nose under the tent for this law. And Representative Frank Hoffman was the assistant superintendent of Education in Ouachita Parish, and he helped get that policy passed. So in 2008, he was in the legislature from the Monroe area, from West Monroe, and he was the sponsor of the House bill, the companion bill on the House side. So these were the people who were chiefly involved in running the bill through the legislative process.
Once this became law, then it had to be implemented.
Right.
And the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education had to take some action, didn't they, to actually introduce it into the schools?
Right. Once the bill was passed, then Bessie, as we call the board, had to implement a policy. And here's, again, where the Louisiana Family Forum commandeered the process. Bessie needed a policy to tell local administrators, principals, and school board members at the local level how to implement the Louisiana Science Education Act. So the Department of Education staff had to come up with a draft policy, and they came up with a very good policy. It was a policy that prohibited teaching religion under the guise of critical thinking and prohibited the use of creationist or intelligent design materials in the science classes. The Louisiana Family Forum wanted both of those protections taken out of the policy draft, and they succeeded in getting both of them taken out. And so Bessie implemented that policy in gutted form to the satisfaction of the Louisiana Family Forum. And so now there is no protection at the local level against teaching creationism or intelligent design, which is creationism, or prohibiting the use of creationist materials. That's another dead giveaway, that this law was designed to allow teachers to teach creationism. Not only that, that was in January 2009. In September 2009, the Louisiana Family Forum went back to Bessie and got control of the review procedure governing parental complaints. And they got this process stacked against parents who might file a complaint against the use of creationist materials in their children's classrooms. So now that process is stacked against people who are complaining about the teaching of creationism. It's stacked in favor of the creationist, in other words. So the Family Forum commandeered the entire process, from the passage of the law to the policy, implementation policy, to the parental review policy. They control the entire process from beginning to end.
So how do they control the parental review process? The complaints ultimately make their way to the Bessie board, and then somebody has to decide whether to act on them, and these are the people who make the decision of whether to act? Or
what happens is that if a parent finds that creationist materials are being used in the child's classroom, the first thing they have to do is to file a complaint with the Department of Education. And the stacking comes in the form of who's allowed to be represented in this process. The parent can appoint a representative to speak for them, and there are no guarantees that that person will be qualified, even if they're on the right side of the science. But in addition to that, the principal gets to have somebody on the review panel. The publisher gets to have somebody on the review panel, and they can invite anybody they want. So they can, that's 2 out of 3, right, representatives. That's the parents and their representative. The principal who's allowing creationist materials to be used can bring somebody in, and the publisher of these creationist materials can bring in anybody they want. So the process will be stacked against the parent in terms of numbers. And the other thing was that the role of the professional staff of the Department of Education has been severely undermined. They just have to turn this over to Bessie, and Bessie, is going to end up with a stacked review panel. And then Bessie gets to make the final decision. So at the time all of this was done, Mr. Dale Bayard was the point man. He was a representative on Bessie from Lake Charles. He was the point man for the Louisiana Family Forum. Bessie went however he told him to go. Now, he's no longer on the board. So there's an open question as to what Bessie might do now should this come up.
So have there been complaints filed to this point?
We have no formal complaints, but we do know that in 2010, the Livingston Parish School Board gave quite a bit of time at one of their meetings in July to the question of implementing the Louisiana Science Education Act for the teaching of creationism. Now, they didn't do it, okay? But they talked about it, and it got a good deal of publicity. And this is where it came out explicitly that the school board understood the Louisiana Science Education Act to be explicitly about the teaching of creationism. Even their director of curriculum, Jan Benton, said publicly that they understood the law to permit the teaching of creationism, which was why the official staff at the Livingston School Board had not done anything, because they knew what this law was about. So everybody knows this is a creationist law. I think the larger question now that we have to address is how Louisiana got to the point where the Louisiana Family Forum became so powerful that they could commandeer this entire process. That's really the big picture, because they write their own ticket down at the Capitol. What they want, they pretty much get. And that's because of their alliance with Bobby Jindal.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, Louisiana has been involved with introducing ideas of creationism into the science curriculum in the past as well. And they've lost. It's gone all the way to the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court has ruled it to be an unlawful inclusion of religion in the public school curriculum. Do you think the reason the Louisiana Science Education Act hasn't been implemented more broadly in Louisiana is because they're every school board is a little bit gun shy, especially after something like Dover?
Yes, because the minute they try it, the minute the school board attempts to use the Louisiana Science Education Act to do what everybody knows that it's intended to do, they're going to get sued, and they know that. And it's ironic that we got another creationist law after the state was the subject of another lawsuit in 1981 that produced a 1987 Supreme Court ruling. But it was the Edwards versus Aguillard ruling that outlawed the teaching of creation science in public school science classes. But it was because of that ruling that intelligent design was invented, because creationists had to call themselves something other than creationists. And so they came up with intelligent design theory, right? So now they have to sanitize their proposals. After the Dover case in 2005, they can't even use the term intelligent design anymore, which is why we ended up with academic freedom, critical thinking, things like that. And so the school boards know exactly what it's for. They know they're going to get sued, which might be one reason that nobody has actually done anything about it. But the fact that no school board has done anything doesn't mean that some individual teacher is not teaching it. We know that one was, the year before the law was passed, Danny Pennington in Ouachita Parish, who is a creationist biology teacher, he helped promote that academic freedom policy up there. And he was teaching creationism at West Monroe High School in fall of 2007, and he had himself videotaped doing it. But he wasn't using the word creationism. He wasn't using the term intelligent design, but he was using creationist talking points. So the Louisiana Family Forum was working with him on that, and they've been pushing the envelope ever since. So. There is a repeal effort now that is 2 years old, so your listeners might want to know about that if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, I do, but before that, what would you recommend if say, a parent watching this program is now concerned about their child getting creationist indoctrination in their school, and they called you? What would you advise them to do if they were?
If anybody is in that position and their kids are bringing home material that's creationist, they do need to call me, or Patsy Peebles. They need to go to Louisiana Science Coalition. LAScienceCoalition.org. LAScienceCoalition.org. That's the Louisiana Coalition for Science website. And we have contact information there, email and phone numbers. They need to call us, either me or my colleague Patsy Peebles, and they need to get copies of the material and hang on to it and document what's going on. And once they call us, then we will contact the National Center for Science Education in Oakland, California. I'm on their board of directors, and we assist states and local citizens who have this problem, and we'll get the wheels turning to find out what's going on. Once the parent is willing to come forward and has very good, careful documentation of the materials that are being used, then we will help them from there.
Okay.
But they need to document. They need copies. Right?
All right. Well, you and Louisiana Science Education.
Louisiana Coalition for Science.
Louisiana Coalition for Science
Right.
have been actively working to try to get, well, you did this past year, tried to get the Louisiana Science Education Act repealed.
We did.
Yeah.
So in I think August 2010, I got an email from a young man, a high school senior, named Zachary Coplin.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that he was going to be a senior at Baton Rouge Magnet High School, and he needed a senior project, and he thought that trying to get this law repealed would be a good project.
Oh.
And he asked if I would help him. So once I checked him out, made sure he was legitimate, I agreed to do that. And Zach and I spent a great deal of time the first year, which was 2010-2011 school year. We devoted an entire year to laying the groundwork, contacting people, setting up spaces on the website for people to contact and download petitions and things. And Zachary and I worked very hard to get this law repealed, to get and I actually wrote the repeal bill, and that Senator Karen Carter Peterson agreed to introduce. And so Zachary took it to I wasn't able to testify because I have a job and I had to be at work. But Zach got a group of people and they went down and testified in favor of repeal. I think it was in May 2011. And of course, it didn't get out of committee. Senator Nevers, who had authored the Louisiana Science Education Act, was chairing the committee. And it did not get out of committee. But Zach put out a valiant effort, and he came back again this year. And it didn't get out of committee. But he's encouraged that there were many fewer people willing to actually vote on the repeal bill. They just left, So the vote against letting it out of committee was 2 as opposed to 6, like last year. So there is a repeal effort. There will be another one again next year.
So these legislators didn't want to go on the record as either favoring or not favoring repeal of the Louisiana Science.
4 of them didn't want to go on the record.
Yeah.
Only 1 was willing to vote to let it out of committee, and that was Senator Dan Claytor. But this year, it's interesting. We're sitting in Metairie, right? Aren't we in Metairie?
No, we're in New Orleans.
We're in New Orleans, okay,
Yes.
but we're close to Metairie.
Right.
And the new chair of the Senate Education Committee is Conrad Appel, who also voted against letting it out of committee. So we need people whose children attend public schools in Jefferson Parish to lobby Senator Appel and tell him that this is a bad law, that it looks really bad for the state to be permitting creationists to get their stuff into public school science classrooms. We need him to support the teaching of real science and to stop letting the Louisiana Family Forum tell him what to do. We would be very happy to have his support next year.
So this effort in Louisiana has gotten national attention. I understand that Nobel laureates have spoken against the Louisiana Science Education Act. They've signed a petition.
Yeah.
How many of them is it?
78, I think.
78?
And, we've had...
So some of the best scientists in the world have 79 of them have come down.
We have 78 or 79 Nobel Prize-winning scientists who have publicly endorsed the repeal. I'll say we've had some scientists inside Louisiana. We have you, for example, that have supported us. We have the Dean of the College of Science at LSU, Kevin Carman, who came out and spoke. I mean, he has come every time we have asked. But I have to say, we've had a great deal more support for repeal from outside our state than from inside. And we need Louisianians to step up and speak up. For example, I personally invited the Biomedical Research Institute in Shreveport to support repeal, and I never got a response. Wow. You would think that they would be in the forefront. But anybody who has any state funding at stake doesn't want to come out and support the teaching of good science and repeal a creationist law. I think that's really sad, and it's discouraging for those of us who have put our necks out, to try to get this bill off the books. But we need people inside Louisiana to help. We've had some very high-profile help from outside the state. Yeah, we need some from inside the state.
So I've watched Zach Copland's testimony.
Oh, yeah.
There are YouTube videos on that.
Yeah.
And he's quite an impressive young man. He's
really, also cute.
Yeah, he speaks very well beyond his years, and I encourage anybody who wants to know more about that testimony and how it was greeted by our legislators. There's actually some amusing moments in there to just go to YouTube and put in Zach Copland, and you'll get that testimony, as well as testimony of many other people that went to speak either for or against Louisiana Science Education Act. It's after watching testimony both for and against, I found it almost unbelievable that
to put it mildly, when I went to testify against the bill in the House Education Committee in April or May, I think it was May of 2008, I was amazed. We had some very good scientists there to speak on our side. We had public school teachers who were very passionately asking the House Education Committee to kill that bill. But the only voice the legislators listened to were the creationists. And it's been that way at every hearing, on every occasion. The only people they're listening to are Gene Mills, who is a very powerful political operative with the Louisiana Family Forum, who practically runs the legislature, if we want to speak frankly about it. The only people that the legislators are listening to are the Louisiana Family Forum and their creationist friends and allies. They're not listening to the people who are teaching the classes and educating the children and doing the science. And again, when you have a young man like Zachary Copland, who is smart, he's been very well brought up by his family. He's a nice young man. He's so civic-minded, and he's gotten out front on this. And when you have this young man sitting there earnestly asking legislators to get this law off the books and do something that's in favor of good science in public schools, and stop listening to the people who don't know jack squat about science, to be very blunt with you. When you have them look that kid right in the eye and then kill his bill, what does that say? I'm speaking not only as a teacher, but I'm a mom, and I have sons, and I wouldn't like it, if my kid did all that work and went up there and
did a great job.
And did a wonderful job. He's such a good
I think any impartial person would have seen that as the right side.
Yes, and I want to say that the New Orleans City Council last year gave us a unanimous vote of support to repeal that bill.
Well,
and that was really wonderful. We need that kind of support from other public officials.
Right.
Yeah.
So, well, I think we're about out of time, Barbara, and I want to thank you for coming and bringing us up to date on this. Very informative. I'm sure a lot of people will like hearing this story. If you're interested in this and you want to know more about it, you can contact Barbara. If you're interested in humanism in general, we encourage you to check out nosha.org, our website, and potentially consider coming to our Nosha meetings the third Saturday of every month at the Audubon Zoo. Thank you.